They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there.
We don't need to go populist left or populist right. We don't need to embrace neo-Marxism or neo-fascism, these disastrous movements from the 20th century. Turns out the answer is pretty much our Bill of Rights, our story. Embrace freedom. That's the answer.
And if the LP has a purpose, it's not to put people to sleep. It's to wake them up.
We're here because we love liberty, and we're here because we hate injustice. We are here to save mankind. We are here to fight.
Join us, the Libertarian Party, in perhaps the most exciting, grandest endeavor in history, the restoration of American liberty.
Ideas spread, they can't stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
Hello and welcome to episode 58 of Decentralized Revolution, a podcast from the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus and Mises PAC. I'm Aaron Harris and I'm your host. I got the idea for today's episode from Sam Shaw. Not only is he one of the state organizers for the Mises Caucus here in Tennessee where I'm at, he is, I don't know what the exact title is, but he's kind of the chairman of the Libertarian Party over in Sevier County, which is the county southeast of where I'm at in Knox County. And he put on this nice little event, had I think 25, 30 people a couple of weeks ago over in Pigeon Forge. And he said, hey, at that event, he said, hey, when are you going to have me on the podcast? And I said, well, let's think of something. And I said, hey, well, why don't we do an episode with some state coordinators from around the country? And so Sam was going to be on the original day we were supposed to record. I got sick and had to cancel. And then a week later, we were going to record, and it's my fault. I thought I had Sam lined up, but it turned out he had to work that day. So he's not on this, but he's the reason why this episode happened. And I'll find out some other way to have him on. And I really do want to start having more people within the caucus here on Decentralized Revolution, in addition to some of the bigger guests that we have, like Ron Paul and Tom Woods and all that. I really want to start doing a better job of highlighting the talents that we have here in the caucus, which, last episode 57, with the makers of The Unseen, that great documentary film that our people out in California made. So if you have some ideas for that, if you want to be on, someone else in the Mises Caucus who would make a good guest, kind of highlights a different aspect or current event of what's going on in the LP Mises Caucus, please let me know. So the guest I did have, which I'm sure that you will enjoy our talk, is Linnea Gabbard from Arkansas, Will Hobson from Oregon, and Celicia Slafter from Florida. Welcome to Decentralized Revolution, Linnea Gabbard.
Hi, I'm Linnea Gabbard from Arkansas.
Hey, and Celicia?
Hi, I'm Celicia Slafter from Florida.
And out in Oregon is Will Hobson. Hi, Will.
Hi. You already said what I am, so there you go.
I broke format there. So what we want to do with this episode, all of you are state organizers with the Mises Caucus in your respective states. And I just kind of want to enable people to kind of learn what that is if they don't know, and what we're doing at the state level, and what our model is, because that's really just an essential part of what the Mises Caucus is and wants to be. Linnea, well, let's all start by just telling us a little bit about who you are and how you found your way to the Mises Caucus and how you found your way into a leadership role. And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of what that entails after that. So Linnea, go ahead.
Sure. So I actually came to the Libertarian Party through a few different avenues, but I actually hit the Mises Caucus and got involved, from listening to Dave Smith. So that was probably 2019, somewhere around there, where I really got involved. And then I entered the party and I got to know people and kind of, got to know how everything runs. And I joined my local county affiliate, Faulkner County. And at the time, it was just the chair having some meetings by himself. And so me and about 2 other people started going, and we just kind of ramped up the party. We just did a lot of work that year. It's pretty much been nonstop work since then. And just kind of took over some, roles and projects that I thought the state needed done and was really helpful. And then kind of rolled into at some point, whenever you're, constantly taking on projects, people will give you more, and they see you as helpful. So this year at our convention, I got elected to the state at large. So I'm membership director for the state at large, and then I'm at large for my county party.
And how did you link up with the Mises Caucus and become one of our organizers there?
Yeah, so after listening to Dave for a period of time, he kind of had plugged the Mises Caucus. I don't think he was directly involved with the LP at the time, but I looked it up. I found the Facebook group from, I think coincidentally, I went to school with Whitney Davis, who so I actually saw some of her posts at the same time. I was like, and then I just sent her a message like, how can I get involved? And then from there, I think I contacted Jeff, and he gave us a lot of material and a lot of resources right away. So it was really easy to get going, kind of organizing who we needed to be where.
Okay, we're going to get into that. Celicia, how did you find your way to the LP and to the Mises Caucus?
Well, I found my way to the LP the first time in 2015. I had just gotten out of the military in 2014, and I just knew that I needed to find some other political solution. And I was in Key West, and our now chair, Stephen Nikela, who was not that at the time, he was helping build the Key West affiliate there, and so he tapped me on the shoulder. Actually, I think Mike Kane did, but I got to know them well there. And I went to the 2016 National Convention as a delegate, and then I think I just really, I guess the polite word is disillusioned with what was going on, and dropped off around 2017. But I still really followed Tom Woods and all that stuff. So I kept listening, and I heard Tom Woods talk about the Mises Caucus. So I kind of found them online and was following them. And then in early 2020, right around the same time that all the stupidity happened, and I lost a whole lot from it. I was really mad, and I saw Michael Heiss say that he was looking for people to help organize on the state level. So I just sent him a message, and I said, "Hey, I'm ready. I've got all kinds of time. Put me to work." And so that's how I got back to it.
Will, what about you?
My entry point was pretty much around 2019, around October. I believe Joshua Smith had gone on to the Tom Woods podcast and basically made a pitch to join the Libertarian Party and join the Mises Caucus. And I felt like that actually had a chance of success. And so I started going to my state board meetings, and eventually became a regular at the meetings. I met other people that have since become board members along with me. We all signed up to be delegates for the 2020 convention, and we were about half of the delegate convention that came from Oregon. We all went to Orlando last year, and basically this year after the election, we had about 6 of our 9 board members quit within a 3 or 4 month time frame, and our state party would have kind of been dead in the water. We would have, I don't know if too many people know about Oregon, but it's had a pretty bad civil war that's left the party pretty weak and barely functioning. And if we hadn't been around, 4 or 5 of us hadn't been there, the theoretically board seats for the Libertarian Party of Oregon would have gone unfilled. We wouldn't have been able to organize our convention, which just happened in spring, which is the first successful convention in 10 years. So we're kind of bringing back a party that was, I think a lot of people had kind of written off and had kind of, thought was kind of dead. We've kind of brought it back. So that's basically what we've worked on and, how we kind of entered it.
Some of you, I have kind of a similar story. I was really involved with the Ohio Party from around 2010 to around 2016. Some things in my personal life changed around that time, and I kind of got a little out of things. And I was kind of disillusioned at kind of the dysfunctionality of both the national LP and the state LP. And then I kind of discovered the Mises Caucus and kind of jumped back in. I know what it was for me, but I want to ask each of you, and we'll start with Will. You said you heard about the Mises Caucus and thought it had a chance to succeed. What was it particularly about the Mises Caucus? What did you see that made you want to try to get involved and find out more?
Well, I saw that there were several different podcasts had kind of committed to joining the Libertarian Party at the same time. I forget which podcast hosted the big, powwow one where it was like Tom Woods and Dave Smith and a couple other people. But I was like, wow, if all of them are doing it all at once, there will be a big influx of people. This might actually have a shot. And then I would say, Joshua Smith, especially his like anti-war rhetoric, which I think was a really important piece for me, that the Mises Caucus was really staunchly and vocally anti-war. I thought that could galvanize a whole bunch of really passionate new people. And yeah, I just was like, I didn't know if it was going to work or, it looks like it's going to work now, but I decided to give it a shot.
Linnea, what about you?
Yeah. So, and this holds true today when I talk to people. For me, the first time that I saw someone talk about it, which was Michael Heiss, constantly posting about his passion for it. It is the passion. It's the drive that everybody has to run with it. I don't see drive like that anywhere else in the party. It's like, it's a cutthroat drive, which is what we need to get anything done. And also, it's a really clear message. I do, even in my own state party, I hear people say, well, what is the Libertarian Party about? Sometimes people don't even understand the platform as well as they do whenever people read the Mises Caucus platform. It's very straightforward. It's not afraid to be straightforward. And so the clear, direct messaging and the constant path forward is really, really exciting. And it makes you actually believe in something.
Yeah. Celicia?
For me, well, what really got me interested in the Mises Caucus, it wasn't so much that I thought it could win as it was that it was the principles that attracted me to it. It was how on point that the Mises Caucus stayed to the principles of the non-aggression and anti-war and all that stuff. And it really, I did a lot of my journey listening to Tom Woods and learning from him. And I thought that if he respected the Mises Caucus, and there was absolutely something there to look into, and I found that was right. And the more that I watched them, the more I'm like, yeah, it's for me. It was all about the principles, and that I aligned with them, and that the Mises Caucus seemed to have a really good grasp on reality and how the world works compared to maybe some other groups.
Yeah. That's the thing is that's all of those things were kind of what did it for me, and what made me want to recommit to doing something was that they did have a clear message. You could tell they were passionate about it. And one thing that I've noticed, and I really hate to, run down people in the LP outside the Mises Caucus, and most people I think are not like this. But one thing I found both at the state level and that I've seen at the national level here over the last few months is that some people, it just seems like they like playing at politics and they're kind of like LARPing, you know, politics, and they enjoy having a position and a title and doing all that. And I haven't seen that in the Mises Caucus at all. Everybody is kind of about the mission and the goal, and those are not divorced from the principles. Because you could have a mission, but if you don't believe in the principles, you know, so to have an organization where it kind of matches up is, it's what convinced me to get back involved too. Linnea, let's talk about what a state organizer does. Just tell us that. Sure.
So right now we have 3 state organizers because we have, you know, the 3-pronged plan. In Arkansas, we have the our candidate organizer, and then we have an inter-party organizer. And starting with those, we basically, the inter-party kind of gets a feel for what's going on within the party, what the party needs, how it's growing, who's in it, and helps place people, whether that be, nominating people for convention or, delegates, officer positions. And then we have a candidate organizer. And that one basically right now takes care of all the incoming candidates who apply. They get involved with the committee, we have an elections committee, so they get involved with that. And then we have, what is the third organizer? They have official title? Yeah, issues. So in Arkansas, we kind of have it like a legislative one. So they have been starting groups like, an Arkansas Decrim Nature, or they get involved with, we have Gun Owners of Arkansas here. They kind of set the bar for who we're going to drive coalitions with. And then from there, we pool that all together, and then that gives all of our Mises Caucus members things to do. So we're constantly working on projects because we have such, appropriate organization per se, where, kind of the rest of the party, just kind of goes with the flow of the year and what's going on. We actually have tangible organization and projects to work on.
Either Will or Celicia have anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So, I think the way that you guys are doing it, Linnea. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Linnea. The way that you guys are doing it, I think it's a standard way, and we're doing it slightly different. Like, we still have those teams, but we have other teams, and the way that I had been looking at it is that our main purpose as state organizers were to really get everybody that was interested in being active with the Mises Caucus onboarded, and then figuring out where their talents are best at. So, we have different teams to put them on. We do have the 3 teams: the issues team and the candidates team and the inter-party team. We also have a media team and a fundraising team. And we do basically the same things like you were talking about. So yeah, but it's mainly, the way I see it is just kind of like, as an organizer, organizing the people and putting their talents to best use to achieve the mission.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about how does the onboarding process work for you? What do you do?
I will definitely say our experience in Oregon has been a lot more freeform. We've not had, I don't think we are working with quite as much structure as other parties are, especially with their already pre-built state parties. Like, we barely have like one county affiliate operational, and it's not even in our, like Portland, it's not even in our major population center. Our pretty much what we've had to do is kind of rush in and fill in a lot of bureaucratic roles, like serve on the board, kind of keep things functional. So which has kind of sapped a lot of our time and our energy, honestly. So we're trying to work a lot more on recruiting and getting more people in. I think this next national convention cycle will be a good time to draw people in, because if people are interested in being delegates to a national convention, they're almost certainly interested in being more, solid volunteers for the state party. It's we definitely have specialties and we have issues we're trying to focus on, but right now there's not a ton of structure, and I think it's just from the fact that we're working with a lot less, and we're trying to make our party more or less a functional state party when everyone else is already working with a functional state party.
I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because it's one of those things that you can spend a lot of time on and people would probably get bored, but we'll explain just a little bit what happened out in Oregon over the last 10 years or so, and why you guys are in that role of trying to, recreate the state party.
Well, we're not recreating it, but we're definitely bringing it back from the brink of, oblivion. So basically 10 years ago, there were two factions, and I won't go into like the nitty-gritty details, but one faction secretly had a state meeting, violated some bylaws. So another faction had a meeting, declared itself the real Libertarian Party of Oregon, and thus a civil war essentially ensued between two factions, two PACs that called itself the Libertarian Party of Oregon. There was some back and forth for 10 years. We couldn't even, due to our bylaws, we couldn't even have quorum at conventions, because we needed to have 1.25% of all of the party members of the state come into one spot to have a convention. We couldn't even do that, which is like 50 people. We couldn't even get 50 people in a room, because there was these two factions going at each other and trying to get the Secretary of State to do a ruling on who is the real faction. Essentially, what broke that impasse, I think, and you could make an argument against it, but I think is the fact that the Mises Caucus joined one side that we thought was the most legitimate side. We built it up. We brought people in. We organized the convention that was successful. And the other side, seeing that we were on the brink of having a successful state convention, essentially threw in the towel, raised the white flag, came to the convention, didn't try to disrupt it or derail it, and we've essentially made peace by being stronger than the other side. That's taken up a lot of, I think, of our energy. So we're kind of working. I think some of us are kind of cooling down right now, but we're gonna get back into kind of organizing our state chapter a little bit more and trying to figure out what people's specialties are and what jobs people want to do.
So I want to ask everybody this, but we'll go first since he's already talking about Oregon. And the specific question is, what has relations and reactions been like from people who were already part of the LP in your particular state? Because I know that in my interactions with people, sometimes they find out I'm Mises and they're like, they don't want to talk to me anymore. And sometimes they're very positive. So what kind of reactions have the Mises Caucus been getting in Oregon?
With the exception of one or two people on Facebook complaining once a month, kind of, it's been great. Everyone thinks we're doing a good job, and they may not have, they're not tripping over themselves to join the Mises Caucus, but I think their perception of us is generally good. It's like, hey, that was helpful. You guys help a lot. You guys, are bringing, are building our party back up and bringing energy, and you're, most of the board of Oregon now, and you're helpful and you're fair. We don't really have that many haters here, and we have a lot to show for what we've already done. And I think that carries a lot of weight with a lot of people. So yeah, it's been good.
That's good. What about in Arkansas?
Yeah, we have a really similar situation. So we've just put a lot of work in, and I think they're really fair, respectable people who are, they realize what's going on. They don't have any issues with it. And then we'll have just maybe under 5 people who do kind of complain about it once a month, but really they don't have any real foundation to stand on. And whenever it, comes down to the wire, they're pretty respectable about the work we get done. But I mean, it hasn't hindered anyone or anything. So.
Okay. What about Florida?
So in Florida, most of the members seem pretty well aligned in principle to what the Mises Caucus is about anyhow. And we spent probably the last year building a lot of goodwill, because even before the convention, or the quote takeover, or whatever, if you want to call it that, we had been having lots of members go up and offer to serve on different committees, because our biggest problem was manpower. We just needed a whole lot more people filling those seats and doing the jobs. And when the people on the executive committee and in the other committees saw that we were there to work, then it really did build a whole lot of goodwill. And like the other two said, we've got a couple haters, but it's funny, they don't ever come to us to hate. I always hear about it, second or third hand, like so-and-so was saying this about you, or so-and-so was saying that about you. So it's like, they're pretty negligible, kind of like mosquitoes. They're just kind of there to annoy you a little bit. And, but otherwise, I think that, it seems to me like Mises Caucus has been very well received here in Florida, and they're happy to have us, because we do the work.
Yeah, I've heard that in many other states, is that, and I've even heard stories where people had through social media or whatever had a negative sort of take on the Mises Caucus. They thought we were this or that, but then when the Mises Caucus people started showing up and doing work and acting civilly, and they found out, hey, these people are not what the enemies of the Mises Caucus have kind of painted them to be. I think that that's the best thing I think we can do, is in our interactions with people not in the caucus, is just show up, do our work, be nice to people. And that's I think that is really kept, I don't know. I really feel good about where we are, and that, it is I think it's a pretty small and growing smaller number of people who make a lot of noise, but they're not the ones showing up. They're complaining, and they don't have substantive, you ask, I've seen some interactions. It might've been you, Celicia. Somebody said something on Facebook, and again, it might've been you, it might've been somebody else, but the person from the Mises Caucus said, well, what are you talking about? What's your evidence on that? And the person basically responded with F you, I'm not getting into this. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are having a similar, that you guys are meeting with cooperation, because that's what we're all about. We want the party to work. And then the two other kind of prongs of what we do are candidates and issues. Talk about what we mean by issues and issues coalitions, and what issues in particular are working well, or do you think are going to be working well in your state? And we'll start with Florida.
In Florida, we have identified gun rights as a very good issue for us to focus on. And it's because for such a, quote, free state, we don't have a lot of gun rights. We don't have constitutional carry. You have to have a permit, and you have to conceal it. And there's red flag laws and all this stuff. And if you go into if you go into a lot of the pro 2A groups, there's a lot of people that are pro-gun rights, and they're like, well, why don't we have this here? And so what we've done is we've actually started a coalition with Luis Valdez from Gun Owners of America inside Florida, and we're going to work on this. We already had a Zoom call to strategize, and we're putting it together to do that. So gun rights and gun freedom is something in Florida that's like really important, and it's also something that a lot of the people in Florida want. And our biggest problem with that is that, like Luis Valdez says, that the biggest problem in Florida is that there's a lot of gun control money flowing into Republican hands, and then there's also sort of an apathy among the voters there. So we're trying to get them to realize that it takes being active, and it takes showing up, and maybe even putting some heat on your representatives, so that things can happen, and so that we can do that. So that's one of the issues. Another issue that we were focusing on, and we got together with a couple other groups and went with their march for it was a maskless march we did, and we put a bunch of signs together, and we showed them that libertarians, and that the Mises Caucus in particular, we had our Mises Caucus banner out there, is against the mask mandate. And we also had, it was right around the time they were talking about vaccine passports for the first time, so we had signs and things like that to express that as well. So those are two of the coalitions and two of the issues that have been probably the biggest for us here in Florida that we're working on.
I would imagine Arkansas is maybe somewhat similar.
Yeah. So actually, like during the lockdowns, nothing was really locked down to an extent that it became that much of an issue. You know, like most of us in Arkansas still did what we wanted to do. People went maskless. So 2A, we do have constitutional carry, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, everyone's trying to protect it. So that's kind of low hanging fruit for us. We like to focus on issues that we know we can do with other groups. That's one. We, like I said earlier, we do, you know, have contact with Gun Owners of Arkansas, and that was a big part of our legislation last year, our legislative session. So, you know, maintaining our rights, making that better. We do also focus on decrim here. Arkansas is one of the places you probably wouldn't think, you know, that would be an easy thing to tackle, but we have a lot of groups who do fight for that right, especially, you know, medical freedom. And then criminal justice is another one. And so we actually have a lot of groups that are working toward that we have gotten with, including like Americans for Prosperity. We have Decarcerate Arkansas. Arkansas, unfortunately or fortunately for people who want to work on it, we've had a whole bunch of terrible issues with cops and shootings. And in 2017, we had all these, you know, people who are on death row pushed through really quickly because our, you know, euthanasia drugs were expiring. So we've had a lot of really odd cases that people are really willing to work against. And so that's been a really easy thing for us to go find those groups and say, hey, this is something we're interested in. Let's get the ball rolling. And so we've made really tight connections with those.
Will, what about Oregon?
Well, we've been working on a lot of different things with varying levels of success. One of the things we started kind of early on was a coalition group called Parties of Peace, where we were actually contacting and talking to people in the Green Party here in Oregon and working on ideas and strategy for, you know, implementing, you know, peace legislation. I definitely need to come back to that and start working on that. I kind of had to put a lot of these issues and projects on the burner for the state convention. But yeah, I think a peace coalition is definitely something I would like to go forward. If you can't tell, that's kind of like my big issue and the reason why I'm part of the caucus. So we'll definitely be working on that more. We've also been working on star voting. We've been working on the lockdown resistance. I did try a small project where I tried to go onto like the Facebook groups that were really anti-mask Facebook groups and anti-lockdown, and tried to organize a bar crawl for to go to bars that were resisting the lockdowns, because our governor actually locked us down for the third time for only 1 week, and a bunch of people got let go and fired because the whatever metric they were using like blipped up for just a week, and then she got such huge pushback she reopened all of the restaurants, but the restaurants got really screwed in the interim. So I tried to get a bar call going and recruit Republicans, Libertarians, and anyone else who was interested, and thought we were going to have about 20, 40 people show up, but it ended up only being Libertarians, of course, to the one bar that resisted it. But they appreciated it. They appreciated the show of support. But we got a couple other smaller issues we're working on, but I think we're trying to kind of coalesce 2-3 to focus on, and that would be like anti-war, the lockdowns, and star voting.
Let's talk about how we advance these issues and work with other coalition partners to get things done. I would imagine in each state it might be a little different. Some states have the referendum or initiative. Sometimes it's just lobbying legislators or city councils and things like that. What specific mechanisms are you using in your state to get people on board and to try to change things? Will, how does it work in Oregon?
Well, as far as coalition building goes, we've just been trying to meet people, and we're all kind of. It is a bit like herding cats. I'm trying to get a bunch of Greens to work on, like, let's say, Defend the Guard, which has it's got a lot of conservative and Republican vibes. They're warming up to it slowly, but they also have their own interests and stuff. I will say the really cool thing about coalition building is how much once you start working with one coalition on one subject, when they hear about the other things you're working on, how they're interested in, because the Greens here in Oregon are super against the lockdowns and masks, and they actually had a big van pull up with us to one of our anti-lockdown, anti-mask rallies that we went, and there were like Greens, Libertarians, and Republicans all marching down the street for the same thing, which was really cool. But right now we are kind of trying to decide what is the best way. So still learning, and would love to learn more from other state organizers what works.
Yeah. Do you guys have access to referendum or initiative at the state or local level, putting issues directly on the ballot?
We do have some recourse for that. It is kind of been very difficult to get petitions going in Oregon because of the lockdowns. There was a really big petition to recall Kate Brown, and a lot of effort was put into it. In fact, there have been several efforts to recall Kate Brown, and they just don't quite make it. There's accusations of shenaniganry at the Secretary of State office and with signatures and being turned down. So it may be something to, when we all kind of caught our breath, to like assess and try to figure out what's the best path forward. Maybe if we see some success in other states, maybe we can emulate that.
Yeah, let's Linnea, what do you guys have access to in Arkansas?
Sure. So what we do is, if we this happened especially during our last legislative session, we kind of got really comfortable and familiar with what we can do on our own. If it's like a local, if we know it's going to be something local, like we'll comb through everything, we can have ordinances written up or resolutions submitted to your JPs, and they bring it to the court. We didn't personally, but like I think last year one of our counties did a Bill of Rights ordinance. So you can, we can do things like that at a local level. or basically anything that, you know, is a little complicated or that we see other people working on. We just scan through issues we want to do, and we literally just Google it, or we Google who's been working on it in Arkansas, and we find that person. And it's been really easy for me to just contact them directly. Like, that to me is the easiest way to get it rolling quickly. For instance, this past couple months, we'd kind of been wanting to do, you know, things with taxes, or look and see what we can do, anything to, you know, fix that here. And we had a meeting with Americans for Prosperity in Little Rock, and we just talked to them about what's possible, things that they've done. You can learn a lot from other coalitions on how they're able to tackle things, and a lot of them have legislative teams, and they're willing to work with you if you guys both have a shared issue. And like Will said, once you kind of talk to them about an issue like that, and they see that you're willing to work on it, they're curious about the other things you're doing. And then you kind of talk about like who is, you know, controlling what in Arkansas and who you can get plugged into. And that's been really easy for us to, on issues that are kind of out of our control, but we still want to do, we just contact those groups who have been working on it, so then we can learn more about that.
Okay. Yeah. What about Florida, Celicia?
So Florida actually really needs to learn more about all the things that are available to us. And it seems like, especially the issues that we had decided to focus on, which was 2A legislation, it's really difficult to do things on like the local, that county level. A lot of it happens at the state level. And we have, I think, 2 legislative sessions a year. So what we are looking to do is put pressure on politicians and legislators that are running for those seats to champion pro 2A bills. Like Anthony Sabatini, this last legislative session, put up a lot of pro 2A bills, and they never made it through because of his reputation with the rest of, because no one likes him up there. And so we're working with, we actually have a new Mises Caucus member who's been a political consultant for a long time. And him, together with Luis Valdez's knowledge from the Gun Owners Association of America, we're looking to strategize ways to get that through. Who does it need to go to? Who needs to be pressured? How many people need to be called? And that sort of thing. So yeah, there are also, I'm sure, ordinances and initiatives that can be done on the county level. And we're going to be looking at that in the future.
Okay. And then the other big thing that we do with the Mises Caucus is candidates, and that's local candidates at the county level and below. Of course, when people think about, you know, especially people who aren't that involved, it's always a topic of conversation. Who's the party's presidential candidate going to be? And, you know, we look at it that those campaigns should be about education and outreach and trying to turn people on to liberty, just like the Ron Paul campaigns did, like the Harry Brown campaigns did on a smaller scale. But we do want to run candidates, but in local winnable races. And we've given money, we've raised a lot of money and given a lot of money to candidates. And we have our process at the sort of the national level, how we kind of look at that and where we decide to put money. But how do you at a state level, you know, recruit candidates, identify winnable races, things like that? Celicia.
So for Florida, the Mises Caucus strategy actually parallels really well with the Libertarian Party of Florida strategy, because the Libertarians tend to win really well in these small local races, especially nonpartisan. And even before my time here, the Libertarian Party of Florida had Operation First Step, which was identifying candidates to get onto the board positions in the local level and the nonpartisan races. And so what we're doing is we're looking on the local level for races like that are winnable. And as I onboard people, I talk to them about all these things, and and ask them what they're interested in, and we get people that are interested in sometimes we get people that are interested in being candidates, and also we talk to the county affiliate chairs and ask them who do you have that's running? Who do you know that's running on a local level? And let's give them the candidate surveys, and let's get them interested that way. And then we also have this. We also have a less than local race. We have somebody running for Congress because I think the seat opened up suddenly from a death, and we've got a libertarian that a lot of the Mises Caucus members are supporting his campaign for that messaging reason. So that's how we're doing that.
Okay. What about Arkansas?
So our party is still small enough that like anyone who will run, you know, we really want them to go forth with it. We do have some people apply, but so it's just a vetting process after that. And then, yeah, we focus on, we obviously have had in the past, and we still are going to run, you know, like bigger state races because Arkansas needs it for ballot access. So we really do need someone to run for governor so we can get 3% if the presidential candidate doesn't. So, you know, we have to fill that seat. But the local races, yeah, we basically try to scan through everyone who's unopposed or winnable, or even something as small as constable, because those are really, they're like never opposed. So you can just slide right in there. But yeah, we basically encourage people to, if you're going to run, just get involved at your, you know, local level, start meeting people, doing things. And we spend most of our resources with those. Now we do have campaign teams for like, you know, we're probably going to have one for the governor, et cetera. But we do spend most of our resources at local level, try to get, you know, as many of those in as we can.
All right, Will.
Don't have too much to say about state races and candidate recruiting, just because we're kind of already working on, you know, more basic things before we can get to that point. I do have some thoughts though. You know, as far as local races go, I've definitely been encouraging people to like get onto like committees and stuff. Like here in my small town, there have been multiple committee openings for like the tourism committee. And essentially the first meeting I went to on the tourism committee, I ended up being the chairman for my town. So I'm like town chairman of my tourism committee because I showed up to one meeting and nobody else wanted to do it. So I was like, well, if nobody else does, I'll do it, I guess. So I'm kind of a figurehead right now because I'm learning, just watching and learning. But so that's, you know, it's sometimes the local stuff is super, super easy. And then it gets like, you know, exponentially more difficult the higher you go up. So we've had several Mises Caucus members and people that later became Mises Caucus members running for county positions. I think that's good to keep libertarians, you know, on the county board. We really haven't had any. It's pretty much been whoever has the juice to do it, just go for it at this point. As far as state positions go, though, so far we really haven't had very organized state candidate recruiting, or it hasn't been organized in a very specific way. I will say though, one thing I am considering telling people in our caucus to do is to get and it will largely be unopposed when we do this, but to run for like Secretary of State positions, other minor state positions that are not governor. And then because Oregon has a mail-in ballot process, they send out very wordy candidate statements to just about every single voting household in Oregon. And because we happen to be the third largest political, or maybe fourth largest, because there's technically the independent party in Oregon, but because we occupy one of those spaces of a political party, we can get a candidate statement out. And honestly, instead of trying to maybe win votes for the candidate statement, just put out information like, hey, we're part of the Mises Caucus, or hey, you want to know what the Libertarian Party really stands for, and then have some of that really strong messaging go out in some of those candidate statements, and that will go out to literally millions of people. It won't cost us hardly any money, like maybe $500. So that might be a really good strategy for us.
Yeah. We're kind of coming up on time. And so I want to give kind of each of you a chance to, I don't know, either make an appeal to people who are thinking about joining up and getting involved with the Mises Caucus in your state, and I'm actually a little more interested in this, is some feedback as to what we, Mises PAC, the board, and the board, the Mises Caucus, it's kind of the same thing, same group of people. What can we be doing better to serve you guys? Is it, better data, anything from something boring to something big picture that you think we could improve on? So, Celicia, what about you?
So let's think about this. What can you? Well, what there's so much that I really appreciate that the Mises PAC is doing to help the state organizers already. We're not organizing this by scratch. We get a lot of leads from you guys, and we get a lot of direction from you, and we're really grateful for that. We're really grateful for the help that you guys give us with funding to help us with our presence at the conventions, and and I'm really looking forward to some of the stuff we've got in the pipe, like the database. So if you weren't doing that, that would be my suggestion. So, but you're already doing that. And as far as somebody who maybe is on the fence about joining, if you are a principled libertarian and you want to see more freedom in your state, then get involved. And there's all kinds of ways that you can help. Like, most of the people that talk to us are like, well, I'd love to get involved, I just don't know what I can do. And I'd say the first thing you should do is go to your county affiliate, get involved there, and give us a call, because we can tell you, we know what's going on in our parties and who needs help where. So just get in touch with us, and we can guide you.
And I'm going to put the info on how anybody from any state can get involved and get in touch with the organizers in their state up on the show notes page. That'll be decentralizedrevolution.com/58. So just look there. Linnea, what are your final thoughts?
So anything that I would want from the Mises Caucus in the future, since they're doing a great job, I feel like they're already on the way to this, but just more resources as we grow, resources on legislation. I know that's all in the works, and I know that that's coming. And but yeah, that's all I could hope for, because at this point, the Mises Caucus has built the foundation completely, and now we're all ready to go and we're ready to run. And I know that it's hard to quickly pump out resources, but here we are. That's what we need now. And my appeal basically is to look at what area in the Libertarian Party is the current, like where things are flowing the quickest. And if you want to get involved in the path that is the quickest way to liberty, I mean, this is it. And so it's that important. It's that important to get involved with the Mises Caucus, because I do feel like we're closer than anyone else to achieving the goals that we want to achieve.
Yep. All right, Will, you get the last word.
Well, I just want to say I'm really impressed by the Mises Caucus. It's been wildly more successful than I think a lot of people may have thought very early on that it was going to be. I mean, we are on the brink, in less than a year, about to take over the third largest political party of the most powerful nation on earth, albeit it's a distant third, pretty distant. That's still something when you say it out loud like that. And I will say, I hope that, and obviously I'm very patient with the party. It's going through some growing pains right now. Maybe there's a little bit of disorganization, but there's also a lot of really good organization, and there's a lot of really good ideas, and it just takes time, like the others said, to implement them. I will say, as we continue to grow, and from what I've watched, a word of caution that as we get closer to holding on to the reins of power, and I'm worried that we are going to have infiltrators, and we're going to have people with bad intentions come into our ranks. And I would hope that if we don't create a system for that, at least be mindful of that, and just remember that the people that were in this organization early on that had good intentions are probably the people you should trust the most. especially with the dissolution of the Pragmatist Caucus. I kind of I don't know. Maybe it's a little paranoia, but like I definitely think that making sure that we are mindful of the fact that if we do take over the third largest political party of the most powerful nation on earth, there are going to be people interested in being in our group and knowing what we're doing. So, being cautious going forward might be good.
Yeah, and you hate to have to do that. I was just talking to Celicia over the internet earlier today about a potential issue in Florida. I don't really think it's anything, but the reason we're careful is because we have had that. We have had people, kind of misrepresenting themselves and then going out and trying to make noise about. And what's funny about that is they all kind of fall flat because even in our private conversations, and there's really nothing to hide. Our strategy is pretty much out in the open, and so is our character. So, and that's what I'm really inspired by. And I want to thank you guys for coming on the show, but more than that, just the fact that you're doing this and that there are more people like you in your states. And then in just about every state, in some states it's a person or two, but we've got this going in just about every state, and just the amount of initiative that people are taking, that it does kind of fit into the decentralized model. It does work. It doesn't have to be top down. That just Mike dreams things up and tells everybody what to do. We're getting lots of ideas flowing up and down the ladder. So, it would be, if it weren't for people like you, it would just be a handful of guys having meetings and complaining and dreaming about things. But you guys are putting those things, into practice, and we really appreciate that. There you have it. I'd like to thank Linnea Gabbard, Will Hobson, and Celicia Slafter for their time and for doing such a great job in those really key roles for the Mises Caucus. Of course, I also want to thank the dozens of Mises Caucus members who fill those similar roles all across the country in their states. Some states we have one person, other states we have 4, 5, 6 people. But they do a lot of work. They spend a lot of time getting people plugged in, and without them, the Mises Caucus could not be doing what we're doing. Also, of course, thanks to Sam Shaw for suggesting, kind of being the impetus for the idea for today's episode. And my apologies that I couldn't have him on, and we'll work out a time to talk to Sam another time. The best way to get involved in your state, and maybe if you eventually want to become a state organizer, the first thing you need to do is reach out to your state's organizers. So we'll have instructions and links on how you can do that over on the show notes page at decentralizedrevolution.com/58. I think we have an organizer in every state now. If we don't, let me know, and I'll put you in touch with the right person to maybe see if you can fill that role. Thanks to Dave versus Goliath for all the music you hear on Decentralized Revolution. He's also a state organizer in Delaware. And thanks to everyone who subscribes to our email list and gives to Mises PAC at takehumanaction.com, and to everyone who shares, rates, reviews, and subscribes to Decentralized Revolution. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.